Hello and welcome. Thank you all for being here today. I'm Nick Kinoki, the Director of Technology for the Asset Leadership Network, and I'm excited for today's ALN Thursday at 3 production. Before we get underway, we just certainly want to thank our ALN patron members, especially Onuma System for Kimono Onuma's participation in yesterday's microgrid asset leadership workshop and presentation. We also want to thank our organizational members, especially Grant Thornton, and really all of our members help make events like this week's summit possible. And then Trent Port Services, we also want to highlight for John Arnopp's participation in the roundtable on Tuesday, as well as the microgrid workshop yesterday. And then here's just a brief slide of the amazing presenters and speakers and panelists we had throughout the week. And thank you to all of these awesome speakers for sharing their thoughts and industry experience and expertise, as well as coming to collaborate, share new ideas, and maybe learn something themselves. So really appreciate that. And if you're out there watching, we would love to hear from you. ALN Thursday at 3 is always a pretty informal discussion. And actually, I think today may be a little more informal than most because I think our speaker has not yet arrived.
Well, that's okay, Nick. Paul Shmotolokha is the CEO of the company that is manufacturing the microgrids that Footprint Project is sending over to Ukraine. And in setting up for this, he was very busy. In addition to doing his full-time job, he's an Ukrainian American. His wife is from Ukraine. So he is very active in that also. So basically he's working two jobs. And if he got swamped with something today, we forgive him because of what he's doing. And we thank Kimono Onuma because Kimono was willing to join today and provide a little bit of a background for Paul to understand what happened yesterday. But since Kimono's here, we can kind of do a little revisit of the workshop and presentation from yesterday. I got an email from Kimono saying, it was even a bit much for me, and I've been involved with all the plans for it. So today, maybe we get to slow down and walk through it a little easier, a little more comprehensible. So what we did, Kimono's been doing BIM storms since 2007, and they are online brainstorms using building information models and digital twins to plan and have the asset information available from the initial planning process and hold that in a secure open standard database that allows the information to come in and go out in a secure but standardized manner.
And can I
yes.
Can I quickly just say, Kimono, would you describe a BIM storm as a brainstorm? To me, it feels almost more a marrying of the brainstorm and action because, but I'd love to hear from you, maybe the expert in BIM storms.
Yeah, that was the initial intent too. We kind of played off the word brainstorm, but there's a lot more to it than that, obviously. And in fact, a lot of these BIM storms have turned into actual projects. And yesterday was actually a good example of that we're actually looking at real things happening and applying things. So it's, first of all, to make it open to anybody that wants to jump in, and then to explore ideas, and then maybe even quickly apply them to actual challenges and projects or whatever it might be. So it's, yeah, you're right. It's not just an idea, it's actually turning into more than that. And it has been from the very beginning, actually.
Awesome. Well, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. And I think I was hearing the word agility in your kind of response there, the ability to take, what might just be a normal brainstorm with some extra visuals and technological aids and turn them into hopefully repeatable, scalable process that can have real world outcomes in real time potentially.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, if you look at the software development world, and agility is something that started kind of from developing applications quickly, right? But you can apply it to business processes too. It used to be kind of a waterfall approach, very much a waterfall approach, even for software development. You kind of have an idea, then you prototype it, then you develop it and you test it. And 3 years later, you have something that's functional. But by then, the whole world has changed. And now with agile development, you want to iterate real quickly, find things that work, and put out smaller modules. So with the technology today, it's actually a lot easier to do that than it used to be. But there's still a lot of the world is kind of still stuck on the waterfall approach. And obviously in an emergency scenario, like we have in a lot of these BIM storms, if we're reacting to things, you really don't have the luxury of time, and you don't have the luxury to waste a lot of resources, and you have to do it quickly and mobilize. And that's what was, I think, the most interesting thing yesterday, about the exercise, to me at least.
Yeah, I was watching the recording, and Michael Hardy was coming in to offer some comments on the presentation. And something he was mentioning was the need for kind of a structured approach to coordinate a variety of organizations or people who can offer resources to help with reconstruction, or to offer manpower or assets, equipment, and something to kind of coordinate that effort, and that doesn't serve as a barrier to participation. What we don't want to do is stop people trying to help, but what we do want to do is, coordinate it and make it, achieve the outcomes that we're hoping for.
Yeah,
Panelist
exactly.
is here. Hey, Paul.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us.
Sorry I'm late. I had another Zoom that ran over.
No worries.
Quite all right. Nice to meet you. It was good talking with you previously. And I'd like
Despite the blizzard.
I'd like to introduce you to Nick Knoke. He's our technical director, and Kimon Onuma, who is a patron member who organized the workshop yesterday that focused on getting microgrid technology to Ukraine. And we know you're busy, basically working two jobs, your solar job, and then all the support you're providing for Ukraine. So we asked Kimon to do just a little overview of what happened yesterday, to give you some background, and then we can talk with you about what's actually happening on the ground. So Kimon, you should be able to share your screen and give a summary.
Yeah, you see my screen?
Yeah, we see it.
Okay, great. Yeah, so yesterday we did something called a BIM storm, and a BIM storm is like an online workshop to simulate different scenarios for planning and asset management, and it's been going on for quite a long time. And we've had hundreds or thousands of users over the years actually participating. So we shifted the focus yesterday to planning microgrids, and that was the whole exercise that happened. It was part of the several days of discussions, and then we actually started posting information on a website, and we'll show some things live. But the first thing we did, and we
Sorry, can you guys give me 1 second?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, guys.
No problem. Yeah, so the first thing we did is we said, okay, we need to at least get an understanding of the microgrid assets. So we created a very simple Google Sheet form where we had the different participants, Will and John, and others, basically filling in a row for each type of asset and the basic information about its size and other data such as how many kilowatts it uses or produces. And then this list ended up being pretty long, and there are different types of assets. And then we started using those and first understanding what they were. So we had Will actually go through these slides with us. These were the first set that we actually saw of what they looked like, mobile assets, battery packs, etc. And it gave us a pretty good understanding of how they function, how they get to the site. Obviously, you guys are the experts on this, but it was interesting because we quickly kind of
He's
absorbed.
the expert on deployment. I just build this, I design and build the stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's the important point because we have so many different experts. It's important to kind of
Well, I mean,
connect
there's
the
a
dots.
linkage. So, I mean, we have like direct relief is all wondering how they're going to asset manage stuff that they bought from us. And so there's, yeah, any case, so it's all intertwined.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so if you look at from a perspective of somebody that produces microgrid assets, another ones that deploys it, then you have the clients on site that say, where do we fit it? And we have a hospital that needs power, for example. How do you put all that together and make the decisions of how to deploy and make this work? And then the logistics of everything being a moving target. Obviously, the situation is constantly changing. So how do we
It's the
address
worst
that?
freaking part.
Yeah. And then we had this other set of slides from Trent where they had the different types of equipment for ammonia units, et cetera. So there's kind of a range of information that was collected. And then we also collected information from previous exercises. A couple of years ago, we had one for COVID where we had containerized healthcare units, 20-foot containers with packages that were used as part of an exercise. And then we had a 40-foot container for medical and an office and housing, et cetera. So with all those pieces, we said, what can we do as far as doing an exercise for Ukraine? And this is a live view of what we did yesterday. We basically said there are dots on a map. It's a digital twin, as it's called, a dot on a map in Ukraine for Kharkiv and for Odessa. And then in the US and Houston, San Antonio was where those containerized healthcare units were used in an exercise 2 years ago for COVID. So having a kind of a map like this allows us to kind of quickly zoom in and say, okay, let's look at what's going on here. And that's what we have with Kharkiv. We started with Kharkiv and we said, what's going on there? And we found that there's a hospital on the ground there. And I'm opening up that view. So we have different views here. One is kind of a simplified, kind of a map view, but we also have a satellite map from Google Earth in the background, which means that we could look at an existing hospital. And this color coding here is to indicate, is it functioning or not? So if it's damaged or if it's deployed, for example, it would be green. But this annex, we simulated what happens if this annex goes down and it needs a microgrid to support it. And within this annex, we also did a simulation of what's inside there, so we know what the demand is. So we had an architect actually quickly lay out what we knew of the clinic. So it's simulating if an owner is saying there is an exam room here, we can get down to the asset of here are 6 exam rooms.
That's huge. Can you get that for every hospital in Ukraine?
Well, that's the objective. The challenge
that would be huge because we can. I'll tell you what. Like if you can increase that a little bit, you know, it's about identifying which one. You know, because you can't always power everything, or you can have the main generator, but if that fails, you know, what's your prioritization and, you know, exam screening or versus surgical, and et cetera. This is this level of details tremendous. Yeah. If you could layer in as well what kind of patients they're servicing, that I think would be important. If you like, for example, I work a lot with what used to be the Children of Chernobyl Hospital, but is now the Western Ukrainian Specialized Children's Medical Center. But they specialize in renal issues for children and cancer. They're not doing general practice. And I think such information is important because you've got those that do triage and those that don't and things like that. But just a small recommendation.
Yeah, that's the interesting part. So if you
funny you mentioned dental, because my cousin is the premier dental anesthesiologist of Ukraine. He does Zelensky and the oligarchs when they need to go under. That's just I'm glad I got a laugh out of it. That's what I was kind of like, anesthesiologist to the Ukrainian elite.
Interesting. Yeah, and actually, just to give you a little background of how we created the hospital. So we've been doing a lot of work with I'm an architect, but we have a system where we have kind of cataloged the different types of healthcare rooms down to the individual piece of equipment. And this was generated from our work with healthcare owners. So you could say, I want an exam room or a dental exam room, whatever, and we know what's typically inside the room without even going into the room. You can get within range just by
I mean,
having
one of the elements to this, I'm working with a gentleman who's put in a telemedicine room in Kharkiv, and we were talking about scaling it. If he ever gets his act together, then I'd want to work with you guys on this. If you're willing to put in that time and effort where we could, that's another thing too. So, oh yeah, there you go.
It's a telehealth room. Yeah.
Is that in Kharkiv?
No, this is a generic requirement.
Generic,
so imagine
okay.
these, it's almost like we set it up like an Amazon.
Yeah,
shopping
yeah.
cart.
Can you drag that into something, or how does that work?
Yeah. So basically here's a shopping cart, right? And say I have a telehealth room.
Yeah.
I want 2 of them. And then you say, okay,
Yeah.
build that. Put your email. And this is all open on the web. You put that in here and you say, build it. And it basically builds that set. It kind of collects all the pieces and it has data in the background about what type of equipment, what's the characteristics, that kind of thing. And I'm going to receive an email now, and that email is going to say, okay,
can we build in like, if we successfully start cataloging the hospitals, can we build in like intake need forms where they're pinging us or they could populate their needs for infrastructure into this, and then donors can assess it?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, that's what we prototyped yesterday on what I was showing you on the assessment of the microgrids. We said, fill in your needs here. We created a form, and this form is what fed into the creation of the assets.
Because I tell you what I would be interested in doing is that if we were to populate this more, obviously it does not to be, this weekend, but this is really interesting. I don't know. I'll tell you how. So a good friend of mine is now the deputy minister of digital transformation. He works for Fedorov. And they're all at Davos this week, so it's possible to get a hold of them. But he hit me up because they have a need for field hospitals for solar generators. And but in general, this is the kind of stuff that I think falls into his ministry. And if we were to look at this and start, I don't know how they're aggregating today. I mean, they're smart guys, they're IT guys, so I don't know what they have. It's not my purveyance, but gosh, I might put you in touch with those guys at the right time. See if there's some value you can add to them. I mean, this to me, if you created a full database of this kind of stuff, when it gets hit or destroyed, they could put the comments in there. They could put their needs in there. I mean, there's some value here. I didn't perceive it this way when Mike was talking to me. That's very interesting to focus in on this.
Paul, you mentioned early on kind of an obvious pain point of, when conditions change and you had just finished your, kind of digital twin work to figure out what was needed, and then the needs change. Well, this is, one obvious pro of this kind of new approach is that how fast it can change with the changing real-time conditions, and that you don't necessarily lose the work you've done because of the nature of this data asset management platform, really.
Yeah. Again, I don't know what they have. I'm not assuming they're starting at zero because IT is Ukraine shtick. So if anything, they have, one of the reasons they're still going is they developed their own artillery targeting software. That's better than what we have in the US.
Yeah, they're very agile. Yeah, so what's interesting here is this, if you look at this exam room, in the exam room, there's a chair, there's a,
I saw that already. Yeah.
And then
for me, gosh, can you add power consumption per device?
Yeah, definitely. It would be an attribute where you just say, in fact, we have it at the building level, but this would be a power consumption, instead of a serial number, you say how many kilowatts, for example.
How many watts usually?
How many watts? Yeah, 120 whatever watts or whatever. Yeah, so that's.
I would add that if you're in the microgrid space, that's a key attribute. I'd have that standardized.
Yeah, definitely, and it's just a database in the background.
And then if there's a way to do it where your database, let's say you do it by item in this room, and then it actually tells you, it rolls it up for the whole room.
Right.
And then that's actually how we go, can I back up that room or can I only back up some of the stuff in there? Okay.
Exactly.
But that would be a great attribute. And then you can, if in the end, you can roll up the whole building, obviously.
Mhm.
And then you go, oh, I need a big ass generator, but I can't find diesel fuel for it.
Exactly, yeah. In fact, at the building level, what we did is we said at the build, in fact, let me show you the report. So the report for the whole site that we're just looking at here is basically aggregating it all together and saying how much energy kilowatts is. This is at the building level now, but you can go down to the component level as well. So we can know that that annex, we don't know what the current consumption is because we didn't fill that in yesterday, but other buildings we started filling in so we could see how many kilowatts it needs. And this is all dynamically updated as you change the scenario here. So if you add this mobile unit here, that's an ammonia unit that we had, that's powering this thing, then all of a sudden you have the, can it fit? Does it power that? It has exam room. Is it doing all the equipment, the entire building, or just specific assets in the building? And we
Yep.
and then we said, okay, we need an array or need another array. We said we started just copy pasting these, but as you graphically, because you can see this, it starts to generate the reports in the background. So now we have 20, and because we have a satellite in the background, we can say, does this fit in the parking lot? And is it close enough? And we know that the
Can you guys be patient for a quick sec? So I got off
Yeah.
a big call and the guy running is calling. Hold on a sec.
yeah, no problem.
Kimon, that's this has been an amazing kind of expose or proof of concept from yesterday, huh?
Yeah, it's interesting how it just evolved.
All right,
And we
guys, I'll
just-
call him back. I'll call him back. God, I love the Google Earth. Its problem is it doesn't look like this anymore.
Yeah, and
Sadly.
then we actually landed it in Google Earth too. So if you go to Kharkiv on this one,
Yeah.
basically that same setup that we were just looking at now, because when you get into Google Earth into
So
3D
what's
view,
Will's thought? Does Will want to start using this populating? What did he come back with?
he seemed interested, but we didn't. We said
Yeah.
let's continue to explore. So yeah,
I,
in Google Earth now 3D, so you see the exam room right there.
Wanted to
see-
talk after this.
Oh, repeat that again. You broke up.
I'm kind of
Well-
breaking up.
It wasn't me. I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
It sounded like Mike said that Will wanted to talk after, you know, in person or
I think what I'm gonna do is this is very good for me to see, and we just got some product, some shipments in there. And as we land stuff, what we can do is we'll catalog in on our Google Drive and then we can let you guys know and you upload it. Is that how it starts to work?
The assets? What type of assets are you talking about?
Like right now I got small power packs only arriving, but like if we wanted to make this grow, we could start with some experiments where I say, okay, there's 8 that's gone to here and there, and we at least know where they, I mean, honestly, some of the stuff I have right now is really small. It's not a big deal. So it's not a microgrid. There'll be a couple more weeks before I get larger stuff in. It's just taking forever on the logistics, but it's going to grow at the second
even
half
small
of this year.
things. Even small things are fine. Like this is a very small generator that we landed here, and then we had from Will, I think it was. Then we had different containers. This is a 20-foot container. So basically we simulated landing in Odessa at the port.
Yep,
Now
sure,
what do
you
you
can see
do?
that, yeah. Or it's not Mariupol, sadly. So hard to land anything in. Yeah. Okay, this is very understandable. It's very I'm really glad I saw it. It's a lot. I'm sure Will kind of went away going, so he has a need for this in the more than I do in the US. He manages the assets, but since I'm doing these projects in Ukraine, it might help my donors feel good and do more. If we know we can track it better. Like you know, kind of love to know where every single one of my surgical headlamps is today, you know, that we sent over. I know they got distributed and I know it's being used faithfully, but kind of would be nice. So, but on the hospital side, the telemedicine program would be interesting if we scale that as well. So, okay.
Yeah.
All right. who's my main point of contact going forward? I'll probably go dark for a week or so, but as we get stuff going, is it Mike or is it Nick or you, Kimon?
You can certainly reach out to Mike or I as a point of contact, and that's fine. We can get stuff to Kimon or put you guys in touch, whatever works.
Okay, Nick, I do have, Colgate. Okay. All right, upstate New York guy.
Yeah, I went to Colgate.
Yeah, it's on that address, on your email address. We're all Hoyas in my family, all Georgetown guys. So, but I've got some roots in upstate near Kingston. Not exactly Colgate area, but kind of out in the Hickey Catskills. So
Colgate was in a fairly rural area as well, which was nice. I loved being up there.
oh, absolutely. Look at your background shows that you do. So I'm up in the Great Pacific Northwest, so we love it too.
Oh yeah.
Important for us. Okay, so let us know how you want to engage. I've got a really good feel for this. I'd like to have access to this if I could. I don't know if I'm allowed or how that works.
Yeah, I'll send you some links. And in fact, one question that you asked earlier is interesting: is how do we get these floor plans of the hospital? But if you only have the footprint, this is a footprint from Google Earth, right? This shape. But then if you know from the administrator that you have 5 exam rooms and the mechanical room up here, even through a phone conversation, you could start at least filling in the parts that are known that would trigger the need for that demand, right? You don't need a complete plan of the hospital, because most owners don't have good floor plans. If they do, then we use those as a background. But if they don't, we say, let's just collect what's available to rapidly get to a point to make a decision. And because we have the database in the background of all these pieces, we don't have to start from zero. We basically know what a typical exam room has. It's plus or minus 10% of the equipment, but you can go into individual ones here and just take things out if they don't belong there. So for this, for example, if this isn't there, you just pull it out of the building and that goes away from the database. Yeah, so I'll send you some links.
Okay.
Sounds great. I was just going to say Kimon's email is in the chat now, but sounds like
I think I had it already. I might have, but I'll mine's in there as well. So perfect. Okay, well, I'm right now of the mindset of really looking at the needs in the fall. I think it's going to be awful fall and winter. It's going to be very difficult, very challenging. So, I'm working with donors on ever more projects right now. And so we will, this is kind of interesting. It's really interesting if I can tell a donor he can keep track of an asset going to these places. So it's always the fear that everybody has, keeps everybody in line. Not just hospitals, but if it goes elsewhere. And then we tell them, hey, you got to notify us where it ends up and the like. So and
we actually yesterday we activated on that same Kharkiv site, we actually activated a work order and preventive maintenance system. So you can actually drill into what we were just showing on the annex, for example.
Oh, I like that.
We're in the annex, we're on the first floor. Here's that exact same space.
Yeah, you know what? I got a project with Direct Relief where I think if we have this, I think it'll push them over the edge. Is there a way that okay, you send me the link, I'll see what I see in there, and then I'd like to be able to possibly include this, and so maybe I'll take some screenshots or something, and I'll be able to. But or if you could, I would love a couple of screenshots of like the hospital layout and the room layout, and I could say, look, we can track this asset.
Yeah, definitely.
So
we have the recording from
that's cool.
Yeah, we have the recording from yesterday's session too. It's a little bit longer, but we could send you different snippets of the key
I just
parts.
need couple of screenshots so you guys think are critical.
Yeah.
Obviously the overview of the country, and then the hospital, the rooms, and then the detailed in the room where we could show the assets. That could be pretty. Okay, great, guys.
Right, great. Thanks for your input. Yeah.
Thank you guys. Exceeded my expectations. Thank you so much for including me in this. And I will, as I talk, look, there's lots of people doing lots of things, but when I spot people doing things that are more permanent infrastructure or semi-permanent in nature and not just food kits and triage bandages, I'll let you there are some of those. So, I'm hoping you guys will say, great, we'll catalog them for you or something like that. Am I seeing that correctly? That I could send people your way that you could help that could help join this and manage their assets in classrooms and things like that?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. Yeah, we actually are using it for the community, very large community colleges here in Los Angeles, 700
Okay,
buildings.
because I've got people wanting to do a lot of donations. I'm not centering it, but he's trying to pull me in for classroom donations for the children that are outside of Ukraine, Poland and other places. And I think they probably want to manage their assets because large projects. Okay, super.
Great.
Have a great Memorial Day weekend.
You too.
Paul, thank you
Thanks.
so much for helping make this so real.
I haven't helped anything yet. Don't thank me for anything yet, but I thank you guys for illuminating me to this.
And thank you, Kimono Numa, especially for really
You
bringing
guys are most talented. It looks beautiful, honestly. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye, guys.
Organizational
Take care.
members for making it possible, as what, especially Trent Port Services for John Arnopp's participation, and to all our presenters for the last week of Summit. This is
All righty.
amazing. And thanks, Mike. Sorry your connections, but you can't say thank you in person. We will hopefully see everyone at next week's Thursday at 3. Until then, see ya. Thanks.
Thanks.